Hey bro, imagine that during the awakening ceremony, everyone laughs at you for unlocking the weakest assassin class, but suddenly the system alerts you. She awakens the coveted Holy Knight profession, eliciting cheers and flaunting her confidence by slicking back her hair, clearly used against human players, cursing this misfortune. So leans back just in time, narrowly dodging the stranger's sword. Strange. As he slices through the air where he had just been standing, Zhu notices a kitchen knife lying next to a fruit bowl and quickly moves back towards it, grabbing the blade as a makeshift weapon. Focusing on his defense, Zhu intensely activates his ability on Sar and identifies the stranger's weak point, a vulnerable area on the right side of his abdomen, near his kidney, harnessing the power of the 10-step skill, a fatal blow that he had acquired previously. Zhou moves with lightning speed and rushes past the stranger to strategically position himself behind him. Suddenly, a sinister and dark aura begins to emanate from the stranger as he enters a frenzied state, surprising Zhu and amplifying the tension fills the air as his energy-infused sword glows ominously. The stranger charges towards Zhu with terrifying speed, but Zhu stands firm, knife in hand, just as the stranger's sword appears ready to strike. Unexpectedly, an object collides with the stranger's head, causing him to lose his balance with a thud. The stranger collapses as two law enforcement officers burst into Zhao's apartment, standing authoritatively in the doorway. One of the officers, an archer, steps forward and calmly asks if he is unharmed. His tone is reassuring, enjoying his moment of glory. However, the instructor interrupts, sternly ordering W to leave the platform so others can, while the other officer, a woman, swiftly moves to apprehend the incapacitated stranger. Seeing how precisely they handle the situation, Zhu, he is overwhelmed by the speed and the series of events. So struggles to catch his breath as his mind races, trying to process how close he was to danger just moments ago. A few moments later, 30 minutes pass, and as the enforcers prepare to leave, Su accompanies them to the car, where Archer explains that the stranger was part of a dangerous cult that targets gamers. As the enforcers drive away, Sao's sister arrives and immediately expresses her concern, asking why the enforcers were at their apartment. Noticing So's somber expression, his sister gently reassures him and asks if he is really okay, her voice filled with sisterly concern. As she walks away, So dismisses her worries, claiming that the enforcers were just carrying out a routine investigation. Unlocking the door with a simple touch of her password, invites him inside, where she curiously inquires about his profession and nickname in the game. Eager to connect with him in the game, and hesitating for a moment, So keeps her Death Star ID a secret from Death Star in secret, and her pause causes Sino to assume that she has awakened a mediocre profession, prompting her to offer comforting words. Fighting back a yawn, So declares that he feels tired and excuses himself, saying he is heading to bed and goes upstairs. Have their turn. After W steps down, the instructor reviews the list and calls Zui, the protagonist, to the awakening crystal. With determined steps, Su silently hopes that this maneuver will prevent further inquiries from his sister. Left alone, Sino watches Su disappear up the stairs. An expression tinged with subtle pain crosses his face as he senses her reluctance to share. 18 years ago, Zoe was abandoned as a baby, left outside of Now. A bustling restaurant is where he was found and adopted by Sino's family. When she was a child, Sino had been overjoyed when her parents introduced him as So. They immediately embraced him as their beloved little brother. Tragically, their happiness was short-lived, as their parents passed away, unexpectedly, leaving Sino and So to navigate the world as orphans. Reflecting on the previous attack and fearing for his sister's safety, So decides to keep his identity hidden to avoid attracting danger to her. Clenching his fists tightly, he makes a solemn vow to himself. May it be strong enough to protect Sinu from any harm that might come his way. The following day, So makes his way to the village of Mingo. Has decided to accept quests in order to level up quickly, since he is currently only at level 3, and he plans to undertake missions. Intends to meet the elusive thief mentor, who is known to reside here, and learn valuable skills from him before beginning his journey. Entering a bustling tavern, So overhears a blonde drunk loudly boasting to his friends that he is a close friend of the approaches the awakening crystal and places his hand upon it, triggering a surge of dark energy that erupts and bestows upon him the assassin profession, legendary Death Star, which makes So smile inwardly. Suddenly, Bib enters the hall, and So spots the thief mentor hunched over with a drink in hand and flanked by two women. He quickly asks her to impart some of her skills to him. However, the mentor is clearly disinterested. He casually shows 3 different skill options and tells So to figure out which one suits him best, and to learn it on his own. So takes a moment to carefully weigh his options. But the mentor grows impatient and yells at him to decide quickly. Finally, Su declares his choice to learn the stealth skill and asks if the mentor has any missions for him, only to be reprimanded as a weakling and is ordered to leave. As So heads towards the exit, the blonde drunk from earlier suggests that he visit Wild Wolf Valley in order to level up, before attempting more difficult challenges. Meanwhile, back in the hall, the two women hand the mentor another mug of beer and shower him with praise, with exaggerated compliments that make his face turn crimson with embarrassment. Suddenly, the loud thud of a wolf's lifeless body landing on his table startles everyone, and the women scream in absolute panic from level 5. So apologizes, claiming that the wolf's body slipped out of his hands. Meanwhile, the mentor looks at him in shock, amazed by his rapid progress. The mentor, now thoroughly impressed, advises him to, as the stat system materializes before him, Zui's expression appears conflicted, almost disappointed with his assigned profession. From within the head north of the village to undertake some quests, which Su eagerly accepts. Later, Su arrives at the sinister and dark, in search of the dungeon. Following his mentor's cryptic instructions, So reflects on his mentor's words, wondering if this seemingly easy mission could be more dangerous than it initially appeared. Ascending a stone staircase, So cautiously pushes open the heavy dungeon door, only to lose his balance and plummet downwards. It feels like an infinite void, vast and pitch black like the mouth of a wolf. As So falls headfirst into the abyss, back in the tavern, the mentor thief smugly reveals that he deliberately tricked So into accepting one of the most difficult missions as revenge for having exposed him previously. With a loud crash, Su lands heavily on the ground in what appears to be a desolate, post-apocalyptic world. Rising to a seated position, So groans softly from the impact, as the system notifies him that he has officially entered the dungeon. Suddenly, a group of Knights of Wrath, all level 8, materialize before him. The system assigns Su an overwhelming quest to defeat 100 of these knights in 8 hours. Reacting quickly, So summons the legendary sword, and, holding it aloft, as his electrifying energy crackles ominously around him with a surge of power. He launches the sword forward with immense force. Crowd, a large and muscular student mocks Zoe, claiming that the assassin profession would be useless, given his lack of skill with, sending it spinning like a whirlwind towards his enemies. The sword strikes its target with explosive power, unleashing a massive shockwave that it instantly annihilates 10 knights, leaving Su satisfied with the weapon's devastating potential. Comparing it to Thor's hammer, the sword rises back to Zu's outstretched hand, which he catches effortlessly, smiling slightly. Zu continues his strategy by launching the sword repeatedly at the knights, unleashing destructive explosions. After each explosive attack, the sword faithfully returns to Zu's hand, allowing him to maintain the relentless assault. Once all the knights have been vanquished, Zu safely stores the sword in his inventory and begins inspecting the valuable loot left behind by the defeated enemies. Suddenly, a sinister presence begins to form behind him. A moment later, the dungeon's colossal final boss appears with a booming voice, the imposing figure demanding to know if he defeated his warriors. Brandishing a huge sword, the figure attempts to hold Su accountable for his actions, but Su smiles and shifts into a fighting stance, boldly challenging him. So boldly challenges the boss to try and defeat him, considering this the perfect opportunity to activate the stealth skill he recently acquired. He wants to test its effectiveness, and in the blink of an eye, he vanishes into thin air, leaving the boss bewildered and momentarily frozen. The weapons. So overhears 3 students whispering and ridiculing him, and predicting that he will have a hard time becoming stronger. Alarmed by Su's sudden disappearance, the boss is in total disbelief, unsure of where Su could have vanished to. Meanwhile, Zu silently reappears behind the boss and, using the Hand of God ability, skillfully snatches an item right from under his nose. With quick reflexes, Zo retreats, clutching a mysterious, mask-like artifact that he just obtained. The system provides details, explaining that the mask is a unique disguise tool, capable of altering the user's appearance and identity in the eyes of others. The boss now realizes that his prized mask is gone. Already enraged, he drops to one knee and slams his sword against the ground as curses spill from his mouth. Dark smoke and sinister energy begin to radiate from the boss, swirling around him like a volcanic storm. Outburst. Suddenly, the boss's helmet shoots off like a cannonball as dark smoke billows out, enveloping his upper body. With an unsettling shroud, recognizing the imminent danger, Su retreats even further. As the smoke dissipates, the boss's true form is revealed. Its head has been replaced by a massive, unblinking eye, and 6 tentacles sprout from its neck. With a terrifying roar, the boss swings its colossal sword, unleashing a devastating wave of dark energy. As the lethal energy surges toward him, So leaps. Just then, Sue notices that the system panel changes and reveals a new ability called Inside, which can expose the weaknesses of an opponent. Into the sky, soaring high above the ravaged ground, and lands gracefully where he previously stood. Sue feels a surge of relief, thankful for. He narrowly evades the destructive attack. However, as he regains his footing, he notices the boss charging at him with relentless speed, poised to strike. Reacting quickly, Zhu raises his sword just in time to block the boss's attack. The immense power of the impact pushes Zhu back, which forces him to slide across the ground as he struggles to keep his balance on one knee. He looks up at the monstrous figure that towers before him, and realizes that close-quarters combat is not a viable strategy against such an overwhelming force. The boss's tentacles lash out, their sharp, blade-like edges slice through the air as they attack Zhou from all directions. He deflects the attack as best he can, but the tentacle manages to strike him, causing minor damage, and so realizes the battle can't drag on. He devises a plan to end it using the power of the Hand of God to turn the tide and draw the boss in closer. So unleashes a barrage of taunts, mocking the creature and fueling its rage. Incensed, the boss charges forward, hoisting his enormous sword high above his head, poised to deliver a devastating blow. At that very moment, the Hand of God's cooldown ends, and Su activates the skill without a second thought. The skill successfully disarms the boss, causing his sword to vanish and opponent. Shortly after, he unlocks another skill called Hand of God. An active skill capable of stealing an item, skills, or target attributes reappear in Su's hands. Now wielding dual swords, Su stands tall, radiating confidence. Engulfed in a powerful aura, he activates the skill on Sad. Zhou identifies the boss's weakness and follows up with the 10-step fatal blow technique, zipping past the boss in a flash of speed. For a moment, it seems that Su's attack had no effect, and the boss appears intact, but soon after, the system calculates an immense total damage of 19,478. Zhou comments with a mocking smile that the combination of his powerful weapon skill in SAT delivers a fatal blow, making battles like these easy. Furious, the boss enters a state of madness. Additional tentacles end up sprouting from its body, along with a set of glowing, menacing eyes that make it even more monstrous. Su, unfazed, points at the boss and ridicules its grotesque form, claiming that it is so hideous that it disgusts him. From the ground begins to increasing volatile energy in response to Zhou's silent command. But with a flick of his finger, Zhou sends the sword spinning at high speed, throwing it directly at the boss. The sword strikes its target with immense force, triggering a cataclysmic explosion as a bolt of lightning descends from the heavens to amplify the destruction. The system quickly notifies Zhu of his victory and offers him the option to anonymously broadcast his achievement to other players, which Zhu enthusiastically accepts. As part of his reward, the system grants Zhu a golden treasure chest, which he opens. Target attributes, leaving So amazed and bewildered by its outrageous potential. To top it all off, the system grants So an exclusive passive ability, immediately with great anticipation. Inside the chest, Zhu discovers a hidden mission, tasking him with delivering a letter, important to someone named So. Inside the bus, the adventurers from the tavern are discussing the excitement of activating hidden quests, marveling at their rarity and the unparalleled opportunities they offer for growth and glory. With a self-satisfied smile, the thief mentor assumes that Su must have abandoned his search, considering it has been 2 hours. However, the tavern door suddenly bursts open with a resounding crash. The person responsible is Su, who strides in confidently. His entrance surprised the mentor and everyone inside. Stunned by Su's victorious return, the mentor's jaw drops as he struggles to process what he is witnessing. Su displays and throws down a heavy sack containing 500 gleaming gold coins on the table, demanding answers from his mentor, who quickly agrees to answer any questions and produces the mysterious scroll that details his. So asks if the mentor knows the location of Dreamless Village. Examining the scroll closely, the mentor takes a hearty swig from his bottle before slamming it on the table, revealing that Dreamless Village is now infamously known as the Village of the Dead. Shocked by this revelation, So presses the mentor for more details, anxious to uncover the truth behind it. The mentor explains that only alerts you and informs you that you've unlocked the ability to steal any talent or attribute within a 2 meters radius. But that's not all. Exclusive called Weapon Master, which allows him to handle any weapon without limitations. Encouraged by this, So imagines himself as an assassin. 30 miles west of the beginner village lies a treacherous tunnel, which leads to the Dreamless Village dungeon, a very dangerous area, which manifests every night with monsters starting at level 25 and a formidable level 30 boss. The mentor describes the dungeon as a random dungeon where players who make the right choices can unlock rare, profession-changing accessories with a confident flick of their wrist, confidently held in his hand. So boldly declares his intention to face the dungeon, undeterred by its dangers, and turns on his heel. So smiles and exits the tavern. The mentor watches him in silent horror, clearly thinking that So's decision borders on insanity. Later that day, So arrives at the imposing Black Dragon Building, a majestic structure that dominates the skyline beneath a crystal-clear blue sky. Grand Establishment is one of the 3 most prominent chambers of commerce in the nation, functioning as a central hub where players can acquire virtually anything they desire. Much to Su's surprise, he spots his sister, Sinu, walking with a friend. Although she doesn't seem pleased by his presence, he approaches her. Noticing Su, Sinu expresses her surprise and inquires about what brings him to this place. Her curiosity is piqued as she gestures towards his attire. Sinu asks if Su has awakened the assassin profession, which he confirms with pride. Sinu's friend begins to tease Su, which causes him to awe. Wielding a powerful 2-handed sword, his thoughts drift back to the Hand of God ability, which he believes could become his ultimate cheat code, making him unbeatable. Cross his arms in irritation and demand that he stop messing around. Sinu intervenes, scolding the pair for their constant bickering every time they meet. His tone is a blend of annoyance and exasperation, which softens his behavior. Sinu offers to show So some equipment to help him navigate his beginner level more easily. With a mischievous glint in his eyes, Sinu's friend warns Su not to ruin the equipment, implying that he will be held responsible, which makes him nervously ask Sinu to choose something inexpensive. Sinu then instructs the vendors to bring out the best beginner assassin kit available. A helpful assistant gestures for So to enter the changing room and select the equipment that best suits him. Moments later, So emerges wearing a majestic star-themed set of gear, which unfortunately makes him look rather comical, provoking uncontrollable laughter from Sinu's friend. Next, So tries on the large flower outfit, which once again results in a clownish appearance, drawing more mockery and barely suppressed laughter from Sinu's friend. And then he switches to the blue sorceress outfit. So now resembles a rock star. But Sinu's friend struggles to contain her laughter, covering her mouth to stifle her amusement after tirelessly trying on countless outfits. So finally decides on a suitable outfit consisting of a dragon trench coat, a dark t-shirt, knight's pants. A teacher approaches Zu, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder, and encourages him not to let the opinions of others get him down. Black and hermit boots. Exhausted from the effort of trying on nearly 100 different outfits, So growls and becomes frustrated as the 2 girls compliment his look. Chosen. The assistant tallies the cost, totaling 9,999 gold coins, which brings tears to So's eyes and compels him to pull out his bag with indifference, covering the expense while glancing at his watch. So and his friend hurry to arrive at a certain place on time. That night, So arrives outside the sinister tunnel that serves as the gateway to the village of Sin Sueños, Dreamless. Entering the tunnel, So ventures deeper into the darkness, and soon emerges in the eerie village of Sin Sueños, Dreamless, where he notices 3 moving figures at the foot of the stairs. As he descends the steps, Sao senses a peculiar barrier enveloping the village, a mystical force that likely covers the entire area. Despite hearing warnings about level 25 monsters, Su's attention is caught by the sight of 3 young children playing innocently in the street, leaving him puzzled. When one of the children trips and falls, So goes to help, bending down and asking if the child is all right. But to his surprise, the boy, appearing unharmed, dead, politely thanks him and assures him that he is perfectly fine. In a sudden twist of fate, the peaceful village is ambushed by knights, armored, who set houses ablaze, creating chaos right before Sao's eyes. Witnessing this horrific scene, Sao feels a surge of anger that intensifies as he. However, after hearing the master's concerns, Zo expresses genuine satisfaction with his chosen profession as an assassin, remembers the tragic loss of his parents and his sister. Just then, the system alerts Sao to a quest, urging him to defeat the knights, and to avenge the villagers who had been erased from their home. Drawing his sword with a determined grip, Zhou points his sword at the knights, and he challenges them, shouting for them to face him if they dare. Without warning, the knights transform into undead warriors, their rotten forms revealing their true identities as they charge at Zhu with weapons raised, growling ferociously and finding his rampage irritating. Zhu activates his stealth ability, disappearing from sight in an instant, leaving the undead knights bewildered and frozen in confusion. One of the undead swings his sword wildly at the spot where Zhu had been, but his attack slices through empty air. On the other hand, Zhu takes advantage. The moment arrives, and he delivers a precise strike with his sword, effortlessly felling the first knight as he sees Soul reappear. The undead knights. The remaining knights howl and rage, collectively rushing towards him. His fury burns, but moving like lightning, Soul moves across the battlefield of battle, delivering swift blows to each knight, defeating them one after another with ruthless precision. After an intense battle, Soul finishes off the knights, gaining a surge of experience points that propels him to level 20, with the excess experience sealed away for later release. Upon completing, but seeing the three bullies continue to mock him, Zhu silently vows to prove them wrong for making fun of him as he follows Su. The Hidden Quest. A second quest appears as a system reward, instructing Soul to defeat the undead lord. At that moment, the ground below, he begins to shake violently. A colossal hand emerges from the earth, followed by the upper half of the level 30 undead lord, whose form, imposing, he possesses an intimidating 100,000 HP. With a thunderous roar, the undead lord proclaims himself the immortal ruler, who exercises the supreme authority over all. But before the undead lord can fully emerge, Zhu launches a swift attack, striking with all his forces and interrupting the undead lord's ascent. Speaking in a calm but serious tone, Zhu orders the undead lord to return to the depths from whence he came and cease his reign of destruction. Leaping back, Zhou watches as the undead lord explodes in a flash of light, being instantly defeated, leaving no trace of his supposed immortality. The system rewards Su with 2 items, a bracelet of undeath that enhances the user's physique and agility. Furthermore, it bestows upon him the ability to summon a skeleton. Along with the bracelet, he obtains a new skill called Phantom Steps, which dramatically increases his movement speed and evasion rate, and he immediately chooses to learn it. He also receives the Lord's Broken Helmet, a quest accessory that serves as proof of the undead lord's defeat, thus marking his victory. Gazing at like a pack of shadows, the bullies continue to mock him with laughter and taunts, but Zhu remains unmoved, his resolve shining through. Helmet floating in his palms, Su wonders if it might hold the key to the next stage of his quest. Now that his tasks are completed, he ventures. Further on, he soon arrives at the unsettling cemetery of the Dreamless Village. The system announces that Zhou has arrived at the Dreamless Village, and he notices that a small child is kneeling nearby, crying uncontrollably. Kneeling next to the girl, Zhu gently tries to reassure her, asking if she is Ao and if she is all right. The girl looks up at Zhu. Her face, covered in tears, confirms that she is, in fact, Sao. Zhu smiles warmly and tells her that he has come to save her, but her gaze drifts to the sword on his back, and fear clouds her expression. Suddenly, Sao pushes Zhu away, accusing him of being a bad person sent to hurt her, just like the others. At the same time, a system notification pops up, indicating that he has angered her. He desperately tries to explain himself, but she runs right past him, stopping just a few feet away. Sao's demeanor is completely transformed. Her innocent appearance is now surrounded by a dark and menacing aura as she accuses him of lying, just like all the bad people. Chanting an incantation, Sao summons a horde of shadowy figures. Her bright eyes glare maliciously at Zhao as she points a finger at him. Sao orders the mobs to eliminate the supposed bad boy who dares to stand before her. As the mobs advance toward Zhu, their weapons gleam ominously. A confident smile. That night, So lies in his bed with the system panel open, customizing his character and setting his nickname as Zhou. Grabs his sword, ready to defend himself against the approaching threat, but then he remembers his mentor's advice. He recalls that he needs to find an alternative path, instead of relying solely on brute force. So, even when the mobs surround him, their hands closing in, accusing him of tormenting them, Zhou chooses not to retaliate, remaining perfectly still amidst their fury. After a moment, everything becomes unsettlingly silent, and Zhou slowly opens his eyes to find himself completely alone. The mobs that had threatened him vanished without a trace. Looking up, he sees a figure descending, a woman with long, flowing hair, who commands the unyielding souls to return to the place from which they came. She floats gracefully and lands softly a few feet from Zhu, who watches her with astonishment, silently wondering who she could be. Meanwhile, Sao runs towards the woman, calling her Chino, as if they had been separated for too long, sobbing uncontrollably. Sao throws herself into Chino's arms, and Chino gently strokes her head, offering her comfort. Seeing the two embrace like old friends, So is left speechless, watching them with quiet curiosity. However, despite the shock, he feels a sense of relief knowing that Sao is happy to see someone. At that moment, a strange feeling stirs within him. Death Star. Recognizing that assassins are usually discreet and often masked, Su opts to retain his original appearance, and he clears his throat. Their cheeks flush a deep red as Su watches them attentively. Noticing a surprising resemblance between the two women, they not only share the same last name, but they also bear a striking resemblance to each other. Suddenly, Sao points at Zhou and declares to Chinu that he is a bad person, urging her to get rid of him immediately. But Chinu continues to gently stroke Sao's head, assuring him that Zhou is not the bad guy that she believes him to be. At that moment, Zhou receives a system notification, unlocking a side quest that tasks him with learning about Sao's past life, and Chinu nods and begins to recount the tragic story, explaining that a decade ago, Dream Village was actually known as Carfree Village, a place where its people lived in happiness and harmony. Although Sao's family wasn't wealthy, their lives were filled with joy. But that peace was shattered when one day they came across a group of unconscious knights and decided to help them, only to discover later that they were demons in disguise. Disguised. Zhou picks up a knight's helmet from the ground and, looking at Chinu, asks if he's talking about the same monsters he had just fought and defeat. Chinu confirms and explains that those knights, the ones Sao's parents had saved, turned against the villagers and wiped out the entire village population. Suddenly, Sinu begins to sob uncontrollably, screaming that it's all his fault because he begged his parents to save those, skipping the customization phase with a simple swipe. Next, the system prompts him to select a rookie weapon from a variety of knights. Chinu adds that after the incident, the village was renamed Dreamless Village. Their fallen souls are trapped, consumed by regret at the village. Sao's overwhelming obsession intensifies. The system warned that Sao is sinking deeper into pain, and in the next instant, she begins to enter a berserker state. Unable to contain her emotions any longer, dark energy begins to swirl around her, engulfing her like a violent tornado, and Chino urgently warns Zhou to leave the village quickly. The system presents Zhou with a choice: stay in an attempt to save Sao but with a discouraging 1% chance of success, or leave and abandon her to her fate. With each passing moment, Sao loses more control, and the storm of pain around her grows stronger and stronger, threatening to consume everything in its path. Struggling to resist the overwhelming pressure, Chino tries, approaching Sao, but she can hardly make any progress at all. At that moment, Zhu steps forward, grabbing Chino's hand and pulling her back, asking her to go with him. However, Chino insists that she can't leave Sao behind and is determined to save her. Zhu urges Chino to leave now, promising that he will stay behind and do everything he can to help Sao, no matter the cost. With resolution in his eyes, Zhu turns around and takes a step forward, fighting against the overwhelming storm of pain. Seeing Zhou risking his life for someone he barely knows, Chino is taken aback. Exclusive options displayed on the panel. Without hesitation, So clicks on the two-handed sword icon, confirming it as his weapon of choice. Her heart fills with awe at his courage. Despite the immense pressure pushing against him, Zhu moves forward slowly. His hand reaches out towards Sao, and as approaching, So calls out to Sao in a firm voice, telling her that he has a letter for her, one he wants her to read with open arms, and presents it to her. He gives the letter to Sao and explains that he obtained it from a dark knight after defeating him in battle. Sao takes the letter and begins to read it. Soon, she realizes that it had all been a cunning plot and that the knight's injuries had been part of a larger scheme. Moments later, Zhou and Chino are standing side by side, looking towards the horizon with happy hearts, knowing that the nightmare has finally come to an end before they part ways. Chino, in gratitude, offers Zhou a gift, the medal, an item that, when used, can unlock a special profession for the players. Surprised by such a priceless gift, Zhou hesitates for a moment, unsure if he should accept it, but Chinu insists, leaving him no choice but to approach and take it. Asking him to take it and accept the gift, Chinu notices the feline chief's ring on his finger and is momentarily surprised, wondering if he could be the legendary Death Star player. With one last look, Chinu turns and begins to walk away, softly saying goodbye to Zhu, holding Dip's medal in his hand. Zhu comments to himself that it is a sign of Chinu's affection, and as he watches her walk away, he smiles, promising to see her again someday. You unlock 2 more overpowered abilities called Weapon Master and Immune. If all this happened to our protagonist, and you're interested in knowing where these the system recognizes his selection and initiates a countdown, preparing So for the rookie test. Moments later, So is teleported from, which makes Chinu blush slightly in response. A meeting is currently taking place in the Grand Hall of the White Emperor Center. 2 vigilant guards stand watch both outside and inside the hall. The officials are seated along a table as a man delivers a report with, the urgency stems from the fact that, of the 12 rare professions awakened in Emperor City, 3 have already been defeated, with a player named Lord of the Star being accused of death. The ruler of White Emperor City disputes this claim, asserting that the Star of Death is far too powerful to waste time on such trivial mediocrity. Xiao Hun, the head of the Xiao family, presses the Lord, asking what will happen if the Star of Death is, in fact, a vengeful and petty villain. Soon, the Deputy City Lord interjects, assuring everyone that he has already dispatched individuals to investigate, and suggests they wait for the report to arrive. While the officials continue to argue, a guard enters the hall with urgent news for Lord B. Approaching Lord B, the guard hands him a file, explaining that 3 hours prior, they searched a bar and discovered traces of the assassin Scorpion, an S-class assassin linked to the Church of the End, and that they found this file. As Lord B opens the file, his eyes widen in shock upon finding numerous documents. Inside, each document contains assassination orders, listing every rare awakened profession throughout the city. His room transformed into a mountainous landscape, his enormous sword hanging from his back. Zoe observes his attire, acknowledging that the design is both practical and impressive. Furious, he slams his fist on the table, demanding that the guards immediately inform the awakened individuals to remain on high alert for potential assassins. Sun points to a specific document and mentions that it's the Death Star list, but they have no idea who the person on it really is or where they are hiding. Meanwhile, in her apartment, Zoe is looking at the piece of metal that Chino gave her as a token of his love, deeply cherishing it as a reminder of their memories together. Just then, her sister approaches from behind and jokingly asks, "What's so special about that metal that Zoe has been staring at all morning?" She playfully asks if the metal is a love token from some girl, causing Zoe's face to flush bright red as she clutches it closer. Sainu teases her and asks if she's nervous because he guessed the truth, his voice laced with mockery. Smiling proudly, he declares that he is happy for So, now that he has finally found a girl for himself. With that, she leaves the room and tells So to use the metal to complete his job, change, and come down for breakfast. After closing the door behind her, she wonders how much time has passed since Sao's awakening, considering he can already change professions so quickly. Shrugging off the thought, she remarks, que, si bien Su puede volverse más fuerte, aún necesitará su protección como su hermana mayor. Mientras tanto, en su habitación, su activa el metal de. Suddenly, the system issues a warning, indicating that the first wave of monsters is about to attack. Instantly, the atmosphere surrounding Zhu, Daipa and the system ask him if he's ready for the career change, to which Su responds with a disquieting nod. A moment later, the system congratulates him for successfully changing his profession to Grand Reaper. Zoe is overjoyed to see his stats skyrocket after the job change. Feeling powerful, an aura surges within him, making his body feel lighter and his 5 senses sharper than ever before. Clenching his fist, he realizes that he could probably shatter a steel plate with a single punch, and he tests his newfound strength by throwing his fist forward. The spectators are startled by a small explosion erupting from one of the apartments, sending concrete and debris raining down from a small hole in the wall. His sister scolds him for the display, telling him to clean up the mess or risk missing breakfast. As he turns around to leaving, So shouts and asks where she's going, and she casually replies that she's heading to work to check her stats. So realizes that his intelligence remains the lowest of his attributes, and he wonders if that's the reason behind his previous poor decisions. However, his inner demon, internal, suggests that his lack of intelligence is due to his older sister suppressing his younger brother's bloodline talent, prompting So to angrily punch the demon and return his focus to his attributes. So notices that there is a new talent bar now equipped with 2 additional skills. becomes ominous as goblins wielding crude clubs emerge from the shadows of the trees, growling and charging towards Zhu with menacing grins, which he can unlock at levels 25 and 35. The first of these abilities is a special Reaper talent that adds an additional 10% of the target's HP, dealing real damage with each hit. Accompanied by a triumphant laugh, he exudes confidence and declares that upon reaching level 35, he will unlock the 2 VIP skills and will become a true Gramray Quan. Du Su rushes out of his room, determined to fight monsters and level up as quickly as possible. But before he can leave, his inner demon reminds him that his sister specifically instructed him to clean up the mess first, so Du Su spends the next hour or so tidying up and finally heads out to dispose of 2 large bags of trash in the dumpsters. Just as he finishes throwing the bags away, someone calls out to him from behind. It's Yaya, the human resources representative from the Scorpion Guild, and as she descends the stairs, she points out that he heard Su awaken the assassin profession and offered him an invitation to join his guild. Approaching Su, he pulls out a contract explaining that, upon joining the guild, So will receive assistance to level up quickly, although the cost would be handing over 10% of his annual income. However, So rejects him, leaving Yaya momentarily stunned, as this is the first time anyone has rejected her offer. She yells, asking him if he is really serious about not joining the guild. As So calmly and resolutely walks away, he confirms that he is serious. Faced with his rejection, Yaya activates. Confident, Zo grips his sword tightly, eager to test his newfound abilities against these enemies. As a goblin swings its club, an ability to ambush So, warning him that if he refuses her offer, there will be consequences. However, she quickly realizes he can't attack Zhu in such a public place, so he decides to take him to a more secluded area. Glancing slightly at Yaya, Zhu casually comments that, had she approached him somewhere else, he might have been tempted. So knows that when a woman tries to ambush you while you're doing something as mundane as taking out the trash, there's a very good chance she's up to no good. He explains that he's already promised to join a guild where his sister is the vice president, and, therefore, he can't betray her by joining another guild. Hearing this, Yaya licks her lips, intrigued by Su's loyalty, and decides to deal with him later, starting by confronting his sister. The first storm clouds begin to gather over the Emerald Forest, and lightning flashes across. The sky casts an unsettling purple glow, illuminating the fierce battle as a powerful strike tears through a pack of wolves, felling half a dozen with a single attack. Close by, a player confronts a colossal, malevolent stone turtle, sword raised high, targeting the beast's vulnerable point. A lightning bolt crashes down upon the turtle, inflicting massive damage. Realizing someone else has stolen his kill, the player whirls around in fury, demanding to know who dares interfere with their hunt. It's not just him, but several other players whose prey. Towards Zoe, the protagonist swiftly activates the Hand of God, causing the goblin's weapon to vanish and reappear in his own hand. The goblin appears bewildered, has been snatched away by the mysterious figure, and they stand dumbfounded, watching a lone player decimate so many monsters with such ease. The one responsible is Zhu. Zhu's sword returns to him, crackling with energy as it floats above the heads of the awestruck spectators, who are filled with dread and lower their gaze with fear. Like a true warrior, Zhu effortlessly catches the sword without a hint of strain. Looking at his stats window, Zhu realizes that he has been hunting for almost 3 hours and has only gained 1 level in the process. At this rate, he estimates that it will take him at least 2 days to reach the FOM level 25 to unlock his new ability, which seems far too slow to him. The other players, upon hearing Zhu's comment about reaching level 25 inches just 3 days, burst into laughter, mocking his ambition. Frustrated by Zhu's actions, some of the players begin to surrounding him. They were clearly upset, not only by the stolen kills, but also by his high-minded words. With his arms crossed, Su points out that this is a public area. It's a public area, and any player is free to hunt whatever monster they want. The comment only serves to infuriate the others even further. One of the players, he angrily declares that this territory belongs to their guild, Morwen. With weapons drawn, the players step forward, intending to teach So a lesson, but he is ready to show them the consequences of their actions. Out of nowhere, an arrow flies towards So. Looking at his empty hands, he couldn't understand how his weapon had vanished so suddenly. The system explained to So that the Hand of God steals items directly at his head, but Su reacts with lightning speed, grabbing the arrow in mid-flight and effortlessly snapping it in half. Before he can reach him, the other players charge at So from behind their swords, axes raised, but but So is already drawing his own weapon. He swings his sword in a wide arc, shattering their weapons and inflicting significant damage in the process. Meanwhile, an assassin stealthily approaches So from behind, wielding a kitchen knife, hoping to catch him off guard while he is distracted by the others. The assassin lunges at So, cursing him and aiming to deliver a fatal blow. Aware of the assassin's approach, So plunges the tip of his sword into the ground, summoning an energy field that electrocutes the attacker. Upon contact, the assassin receives a jolt. Electrica, taking severe damage from witnessing this, kneels before him in despair. The other players beg So for mercy, pleading for their lives, and apologizing for their previous actions. So drops his sword, casually placing it behind his back, as the players, now, on all fours, bow deeply before him, promising to leave the area immediately and never return. Su agrees to let them go, but only after asking if they know of a place where he can gain maximum experience and level up quickly. One of the players, hesitant but ultimately willing to cooperate, random abilities or attributes, depending on chance. Frustrated by the ability's randomness, So hit the system panel, venting, mentions a rumor about a secret kingdom said to be hidden deep within the Emerald Forest. With this new lead, So turns to leave and orders the players, may they leave as well, and may they never cross his path again. Grateful for their lives, the players bow even lower, offering their thanks. But as soon as Su is out of aerial range, the player who had begged for mercy promised to call his boss and seek revenge against Su. After a short trek, So arrives at the heart of the Emerald Forest, an area known as the Miasma Swamp, where danger lurks in every shadow. So grips his sword carefully, cautious of a possible ambush by monsters that might be lurking in this sinister place. Right at that moment, a system notification appears, informing So that he has activated a random quest called The Secret Kingdom of the Werewolf. The Secret Kingdom of the Werewolf is a hidden domain teeming with werewolves ranging from level 30 to 40, and Zo's eyes gleam with excitement as he recognizes the opportunity to farm them for a substantial amount of experience. Without any hesitation, he heads towards the entrance of the realm. He grips the sword firmly in his hand, prepared for whatever awaits him inside. A mere 15 minutes later, Zo emerges from the realm, having effortlessly defeated all the monsters within. The system congratulates him on clearing the secret realm and presents him with a reward package that appears in his inventory. When the system, his irritation, another goblin charged at him, roaring furiously and raising its club high to attack, but Su reacted quickly and used the club. Asks if he would like to view the rewards. Zo eagerly accepts. His eyes widen in astonishment at the items displayed before him. A satisfied smile spreads across Su's face as he marvels at the high-quality rewards, all of which are level 40 items. After saving the items in his inventory, he sits on a large stone and realizes that his inventory is almost full, so he decides to take a moment to sort through things. So begins to examine his rewards more closely and plans to get rid of some unnecessary items to make room. First, So inspects the weapons and, noting their average attributes, decides to smelt them for materials instead of storing them. The next item, a wolfskin shirt, turns out to be equally unimpressive, so he opts to sell it immediately along with the remains. Ends of his living room. Zu reaches level 31, thanks to the experience he gained from the werewolves. This new level unlocks the crow ability of death, which allows Zu to transform into a crow and fly through the skies, gaining enhanced abilities in the process. Suddenly, Zu is startled by a group of players approaching him from behind and calling out to him. The same player from before returns, now accompanied by his boss and several others, all with the intention of taking revenge on Zu. The boss, a level 40 president of the Morwian Guild, tells Zu that he can still surrender and hand over all of his stolen to parry the incoming attack, deflecting it with precision and activating perception. So identified the goblin's weakness as its vulnerable head. Loot if he wants to avoid trouble. However, Zo, without the slightest hint of concern, confidently states that he had anticipated this outcome. He let the bald player go. Upon hearing this, the boss stares at the bald player, his eyes narrowing with curiosity. Without warning, he places his hand on the Manus, head of the bald player, who, terrified, can only watch, knowing what awaits him. The boss begins to drain his energy, casually questioning why. The player shares the same hairstyle as him, before transforming him into a gruesome, skeletal form. The boss accuses him of trying to imitate him by adopting the same haircut. Turning his attention to Su, the boss demands that he hand over the secret realm's teleportation rhythm if he hopes to get out of here alive. Witnessing the boss effortlessly dominating the bald player, So hesitates for a moment, feeling somewhat bewildered. The other players, they completely surround So, forming a tight circle around him. Their weapons are raised, ready to strike. Zo scans the group, carefully, contemplating whether to test his new magical ability on them. Without any warning, he unleashes a burst of power, activating his transformation ability, and transforming into a crow that soars into the sky with blinding speed. As the dust settles, the players look around, them, confused, and the boss urgently orders them to disperse and search for Sue, who is now flying over the forest as skills lead him, stay until the end. That being said, let's get started. Blue Star, a world parallel to Earth, serves as the setting for this story, a world without, unprotected. When the goblin swung its club again, Sue nimbly dodged backward, evading the attack. Seizing the opportunity, Sue grabs a crow. Zo decides to test his ability on Sad, curious to see if it works in his transformed state. To his relief, the ability works perfectly, allowing him to see the weaknesses of the players below, including the boss's hidden vulnerability in his hand, and explaining why he always wears gloves. Realizing the potential of his newfound knowledge, Zo activates the Hand of God ability, aiming it directly at the boss. The skill hits the boss, stealing his prison contract ability and granting it to Zo. The boss realizes that he just lost a valuable skill and feels something unusual and instinctively uses his aura sense skill. His eyes scan the sky, and the moment he spots Zo in his crow form, he issues an order to his crew to take down Zo immediately. But before the players can react, Zo releases his feathers, launching a total of 72. Sharp projectiles rain down on them. The feathers descend like a storm, hitting most of the players and instantly defeating them. When the boss raises a hand to summon a shield using his summoning skill, conjuring a dummy figure above himself to block the incoming barrage of feathers and protect himself. Realizing the boss's tactic, Zo, now back in his human form, charges at him. His sword crackles with energy as he raises it for a decisive blow. With a single, powerful strike, he destroys the dummy shield, cleaving it in two. As Zo lands on the ground, he grips the club with both hands and lunges forward, aiming for the goblin's exposed head with a resounding impact. Zo delivers a powerful blow too. The boss advances with his hands raised to attack, declaring that he will defeat Zo and claim his sword. Utilizing the prison contract skill, the boss releases tendrils of dark energy, embedding them into the defeated players and transforming them into his personal minions. Observing this, Zo, he notices just how powerful the ability is and is pleased that he stole it beforehand. With the dark energy threads still connected to the players, the boss orders them to surround Zo and approach him with a wicked smile on his face. The boss taunts Zo, declaring that he will control him just like the others, his eyes fixed on Zo's sword with a fierce red glow. Zo points his sword at the boss, warning him not to even think about touching it. Zo then takes out the secret realm teleportation bead, activating it to open a portal behind him. Seeing Zo disappear into the portal, the boss orders his minions following him, charging after him with their zombified players, determined to catch him as he enters the secret realm. The boss finds Sue standing in front of a large group of imposing werewolves, clearly ready for battle. The boss puts on a show, saying it's ridiculous that So would prefer to confront the werewolves rather than submit to him and surrender his sword. Stepping forward defiantly, the werewolf commander growls ferociously, declaring that the humans who dared to enter their domain would pay a heavy price. While Sue observes the werewolf king's formidable attributes, Sue is impressed, and the goblin's head. Witnessing this, the remaining goblins freeze in terror, their jaws dropping in disbelief, and he quickly uses the prison contract ability he stole from the boss to take control and form a contract with the Wolf King. So now has success. Both the king and his minions are now under Zoo's complete control. Bowing deeply before him, the Wolf King reverently addresses Zoo as his master and eagerly awaits his orders, pointing towards the boss and his team. Zoo orders the Wolf King to teach them a harsh lesson they won't forget. Witnessing Zoo's powerful ability to dominate the wolves, the boss is completely dumbfounded and unable to comprehend what has just transpired. Transforming back into a raven, Zoo quickly ascends into the air while the wolves charge forward with relentless aggression. Zoo unleashes a barrage of feathers from above, targeting the players below as the wolves relentlessly attack. In a frantic attempt to escape, the boss, he trips over a root, losing his balance and falling unceremoniously to the ground. Lying on the ground, the chief looks up with terror as the wolves close in on him. The chief desperately begs for mercy, offering Zhu all of his precious possessions. Descending, Soul transforms back into his human form, landing on the massive shoulders of the imposing Wolf King. Then, as he summons his sword, enveloped in energy, the chief's eyes widen in pure terror as crackling bolts of dark energy descend, striking him with devastating power, while aside the broken club, So faces the other goblins, ready to finish the fight. In a flurry of movement, So defeats the goblins wielding two wolves overwhelm the chief. Zo sheathes his sword, coldly commenting that the chief deserves the punishment he brought upon himself. With the encounter resolved, he moves forward. Confidently, he heads toward the portal. Seconds later, in the shadowy confines of a city alley, Su lowers his disguise mask, making sure that his appearance and nickname remain hidden as he enters a new alias into the system. Don't mess with the crow. The system quickly confirms the nickname update, and once that's done, So decides to return home without drawing any further attention to himself. As he walks, he notices that a woman nearby is none other than Yaya, who seems to be trying to persuade a young woman with a rare profession to join her guild. Transforming into a raven, Su flies high above Yaya, observing as she says goodbye to the girl, and advises her to contact her later if she changes her mind. Seeing Yaya slips into a secluded alleyway, Zu decides to follow her silently, intrigued by what she might be planning and moving further into the shadows. Yaya removes her outer cloak, revealing an intricate scorpion tattoo. Surprised by the sight, Zo instinctively lets out a high-pitched sound upon hearing the sudden noise. Yaya cautiously turns around mid-change and demands to know who dares to spy on her. Not seeing anyone in sight, she slowly returns her focus to dressing, though her killer instincts leave her feeling the distinct presence of unseen eyes. Now, stolen clubs, gaining experience points, and leveling up along the way. Zo examines her skills panel and notices that the Yaya's true identity as a fellow assassin is revealed. Zo feels a surge of surprise at her true nature. Moments later, Yaya completes her transformation. Her outfit now reflects her status as a level 40, second-grade assassin. Leaving the alley, Yaya moves forward, unaware that someone continues to follow her from above. After a while, Yaya's transmitter beeps, notifying her of a response from the girl she had tried to recruit earlier via video call. The girl, who introduces herself as Molink, informs Yaya of her decision to join the Scorpion Guild, prompting Yaya to arrange an immediate meeting in her crow form. So watches as Yaya Silva, with apparent delight, celebrates her success in attracting the unsuspecting girl. Seconds later, he arrives at Yaya's premier specialty hotel, just in time to witness Molink collapsing in the lifeless ground, licking his finger with a mocking smile. Yaya coldly comments that the world has too many weird professionals, and that, in order to keep balance, some must be eliminated. Closing the door behind her, Yaya leaves the lifeless Moling behind. Looking out the window, Zhu feels a wave of shock as he pieces together Yaya's sinister plan to eliminate the weird professionals, and realizes that he might have been his target, fearing for his sister's safety. Frantically, he pulls out his phone and dials her number, worry running through his mind. Meanwhile, Hand of God becomes more effective when combined with unique assassin abilities. The system interrupts, announcing the arrival of the Zhu's sister, Sinu, relaxes in a hot spring, enjoying a carefree moment with her friend. The sudden ringing of Sinu's phone, it startles both girls, but her friend protests, grabbing Sinu's arm and insisting she ignore it. However, Sinu points out that the call is from her brother, So, and that it might be important, but her friend pouts, complaining that So doesn't seem to be able to live without her sister, declaring that, since it's her birthday, she won't allow Sinu to be distracted by anyone or anything. With his face close to hers, Sinu teases Seiyu by gently softly touches her lips, and asks her why she seems so jealous of her brother. While the two girls revel in light-hearted joy, our boy anxiously dials his sister's number, only to be met with silence, determined to ensure his sister's safety. Sen turns on the play. Flight relentlessly chases the woman as she speeds away in her car, the pursuit leading them to the city's wealthiest neighborhood. At Emperor Blanca, floating just above the ground, he spies on Yaya, who eventually meets with a strange-looking man exhibiting erratic and unsettling behavior. Once seated, Seojun reprimands Yaya for carelessly eliminating rare players, cautioning her that this will attract unwanted attention. Xiaojun, discreetly perched on a tree branch, eagerly eavesdrops on their conversation and discovers that they are involved in a sinister cult. With a Dalivao, The second wave of goblins soon appears in overwhelming numbers. So draws his two-handed sword, pointing it at the incoming horde, challenging them to, with a sudden, sharp gesture, Xiao Jun demands to know why Yaya is targeting newly awakened rare professionals, and how this relates to locating the enigmatic Death Star. Yaya suggests that the Death Star is likely among the 12 rare newcomers, and points out that, obtained the legendary Forbidden Chest. The protagonist was suddenly surprised to realize that he is the true target of the pursuit. Intrigued, Xiao Jun asks about the obsession with the Death Star, and Yaya reveals that they see it as the key to reviving the Lord of the End, adding her own ambition, personal. Yaya declares that she does not care about her lord's resurrection and is only interested in the forbidden treasure chest. Xiao Jun is surprised, momentarily. His thoughts swirl with the potential power of the forbidden treasure chest, capable of unlocking legendary artifacts. Secretly, he plans to seize the forbidden treasure chest for himself and vows to eliminate both Death Star and Yaya in order to solidify his own domain, maintaining a calm facade. He further investigates Yaya and asks if she has discovered any clues about Death Star's whereabouts. Death Star. Yaya smiles, pulls out a photo of Zoe, and places it on the table, confidently declaring her suspicion that he is Death Star. Seeing his own image in her hands, Zoe is shocked to the core, unable to comprehend how Yaya managed to uncover his identity. Examining the photo, Xiao Jun approach. With a powerful blow, So unleashes a shockwave that scatters several goblins, sending them flying in one fluid motion. He follows with a wide, scoffs, commenting that he doesn't seem particularly remarkable, but Yaya retorts by pointing out his immunity to her charm abilities. Xiao Jun feels, agreeing, and suggests that they should begin by interrogating Su's sister to confirm his theory. Su's fury ignites when he listening to his plan B, which involves harming his sister. A burning determination sparks within him. Suddenly, a powerful attack strikes the tree Zu is perched on, forcing him to launch himself into the air to evade the assault. Granny looks at Zoe and, in a high-pitched voice, accuses the crow of following her for some time. Taking advantage of the distraction, Xiao Jun raises his hand, activating his tower shield skill, and summoning a radiant barrier to trap both him and Yaya. In a nearby, isolated battle zone, two men, likely law enforcement officers, are on patrol and hear the commotion. But one of them dismisses it. Dismissing the noise as insignificant, the tower shield, a formidable ability, creates an isolated combat arena, immune to outside interference. The effects persist for 30 minutes. Yaya, with a tense posture, questions Xiao Hun's betrayal, to which he bluntly replies that his only interest lies in acquiring the forbidden treasure chest. A mischievous smile spreads across Yaya's face as she activates a special ability. Mocking Xiao Hun, she questions how he could possibly hope to defeat her as their battle escalates into chaos. So decides to distance himself, knowing that the arc, eliminating the remaining goblins with decisive blows. After the battle, So checks his stats panel, noticing a significant crossfire could prove disastrous. Wasting no time, Yaya unleashes a devastating attack towards Xiao Hun, but he immediately counterattacks with his fearless golden body ability allows him to transform his form into an impenetrable shield, absorbing the impact as dark energy crackles around him. Yaya raises her hand, channeling another powerful blow. Employing her assassin skills, she conjures multiple clones, each armed with deadly daggers. They charge towards Xiao Hun, gritting their teeth in unison. Xiao Hun stomps on the ground with immense force, fracturing the terrain and sending shockwaves that spread towards Yaya, who nimbly jumps to evade the attack. Su watches from a safe distance and thinks that Yaya is really strong. As Yaya lands, Xiao Hun now wields a huge sword and lunges at her. With a wild grin, Yaya. She charges to meet him. His dagger glows as he grips it tightly. Their weapons collide with explosive force, and sparks illuminate their fierce battle. The battle continues, and each blow is an embodiment of skill and tenacity. Yaya lunges forward, attempting to pierce Xiao Hun's defenses, but he counterattacks, grabbing her in the air and stopping her momentum as their fierce fight continues. Sosu sees the opportunity to intervene, unleashing a storm of 72 sharp feathers aimed directly at them. As Xiao Hun lunges forward, startled by the unexpected assault, Xiao Jun increase in his attributes, and his level rising to 2, with strength at 36, health at 200, mana at 20, and other stats increasing. So prepares, wonders if the crow is simply Yaya's pet or something more. In the midst of the chaos, a single feather strikes Yaya, and its immobilizing effect begins to take hold, freezing her in place for 10 crucial seconds. Seeing Yaya immobilized, Xiao Jun quickly turns around, a malicious smile curling on his lips. Evil smile as he charges at her with his sword. His sword strikes Yaya's outfit, which glows, indicating that the protective armor took a direct hit, reducing its durability by 50%. In an instant, just as the immobilization effect wears off, Yaya regains control and grabs Xiaojun's sword with her bare hand. Her eyes shine with defiance, and taking advantage of the close proximity, Yaya counterattacks with a fierce slash from her dagger, inflicting massive damage and sending Xiaojun flying backwards through the air. Zhou watches the rapid and terrifying display of skills. Yaya is stunned by her speed and power as her dagger is about to strike Xiaohun. Yaya accuses him of conspiring with the crow and demands to know how long he has conspired against the church. Xiaojun, his voice filled with rage, retorts that he was forced to conspire with the church only because they threaten the safety of the children of the Xiao family. Listening to their heated argument, So deduces that Yaya mistakenly believes that he is Xiaohun's pet. With a mocking smile, Yaya declares her intention to use her charm. Xiaohun, equally amused, reminds her that her charm skill, name, were a mysterious game called Down, descended more than 100 years ago. With its arrival, monsters, bosses, and even demons from the game began to, for the ultimate confrontation, but is suddenly shaken by the sound of galloping footsteps, prompting So to grab his sword and scan his surroundings. Only works on players who don't let themselves be intimidated. Yaya states that she has no interest in charming Xiaohun, but instead has the intending to charm the crow. Yaya prompts Zhou to feign being charmed. Believing that Zhou is now under her control, Yaya orders him to attack Xiaohun, and Zhou obeys, throwing sharp feathers that Xiaohun deflects. However, one feather manages to pierce through and immobilize Xiaojun, leaving him vulnerable for 10 crucial seconds. Seizing the opportunity, Yaya launches herself at Xiaohun. Sudaga strikes his armor with precision, reduces its durability by another 30%. Suddenly, Zhou ascends higher into the air and fires another flurry of feathers at Yaya, forcing her to jump to the side, bewildered by the crow's unexpected betrayal. With a confident smile, Xiaojun reiterates that Yaya's charm skill is ineffective. Against anything but the players themselves, Yaya and Xiaojun, undeterred, charge at each other once more with unwavering resolve. With unbreakable spirits, they prepare for another clash of swords. From his advantageous position, So decides to eliminate them both, unleashing another rain of feathers directed straight at the combatants. Meanwhile, at the main estate of the Zhao family, the Lord urgently seeks an audience with Lord Xiao, only to be informed by a caretaker that Lord Xiao is currently occupied. Their conversation is interrupted. To his surprise, the final boss, a level 10 demon knight with feline features, appears behind him and asks if he was looking for him. When the ground beneath them begins to shake violently, startling both men, who turn their gaze towards the nearby forest, where they witness a beam of white light explodes in the sky like a laser, its brilliance leaving everyone astonished. On the battlefield, Xiaojun and Yaya remain locked in a relentless confrontation, with neither showing any signs of backing down. Sensing an opening, Zhou sends another cascade of feathers towards the duo, determined to tip the balance of the battle. In a dramatic twist, Su transforms back into his human form mid-air, summoning his sword and activating an Al ability that amplifies his damage. Immobilized by the previous attack, Yaya and Xiaojun are left helpless as they watch the masked figure descend upon them in horror. With a powerful swing of his sword, Su unleashes a cataclysmic explosion that obliterates the ground beneath them, sending trees and debris skyward as a pillar of radiant energy shoots up and slams into the ground. Lowering his mask, Zhu looks on, inside the enormous crater left by his attack, wondering if it was enough to take out his opponents. Xiao Hun clings to the edge of the crater. Xiao Hun, though gravely injured, survives from his precarious position thanks to the protection granted by his enchanted necklace. He looks on, his mind racing, realizing that such a powerful attack could only come from someone who is at least level 80 or higher. Yaya, equally battered, lies prone on. Surprised by the boss's sudden appearance, Zhou quickly takes a few steps back. His mind races, trying to understand how it appeared out of nowhere. The ground. Suddenly, Lord B arrives on the scene and quickly casts an ability called Heavenly Barrier, summoning a vast, empty, circular prison capable of blocking all attribute-based professions. Zhou smirks, and activates his 10-step fatal blow combo, slashing his sword 10 times in a patterned sequence. A zigzagging attack that shatters the heavenly barrier with ease, leaves him staring in disbelief at the broken barrier. Lord Bai's mouth gapes as he struggles to comprehend the overwhelming power of Zhou, who points his sword at V. Zhou accuses him of aiding a member of the Church of the End, and demands to know if he is secretly aligned with the cult. Taken aback by the accusation, Lord Bai stammers a denial. Meanwhile, Sun attempts to feign innocence by running toward him in a desperate bid for protection, deflecting his sword toward Yaya, who is attempting to escape. Zhou then reveals his identity as the poisonous scorpion, the responsible for eliminating 3 players with rare professions. Turning to Xiaohun, Lord Pai sternly demands an explanation for Yaya and her presence. He questions Xiaohun's connection to her, falling to his knees in the process. Xiaohun appears before Lord Pai, begging for forgiveness and admitting that his greed led him to side with the wrong people, before shifting his attention to Yaya. Side with the wrong people, shifting his attention to Yaya. With an icy glare, Lord Pai asks her if she has anything to say in her defense. Yaya. His mission, taking full responsibility for attacking the rare profession players without a hint of remorse. Before anyone, with an air of arrogance, the boss points a sharp claw at Zhou and taunts him, declaring that the greatsword he carries is insignificant to her. Can react. Yaya activates the Void Seal, a high-level skill effect that triggers an immediate teleportation to a safe location, thereby executing her escape plan. Lord swiftly conjures void spheres with the intention of trapping her within his field of explosive containment. As the void spheres detonate with tremendous force upon impact, Zhou seizes the opportunity to revert to her crow form. Crow, rapidly disappearing into the night sky, watching Su vanish in an instant. Both Lord Bu and Xiaohun are left perplexed. Meanwhile, Yaya reappears in the dimly lit alleyway. Her frustration overflows as she curses her pursuers for interfering with her plans. Abruptly, she notices a bird-shaped shadow projected onto the ground beneath a streetlight and turns to find Zhou perched there, looking at her with piercing eyes. Surprised, she demands to know why Zhou is relentlessly pursuing her and asks if he is working together with Xiaohun. Speaking in a cold tone, ZH5 declared that he despises anyone who meddles in his affairs and, rising up, unleashes a volley of enchanted feathers aimed directly at her, forcing her to flee. Back in Zhu's apartment, his sister, half asleep, unusually sees 3 untouched plates of food, wondering why he hasn't returned home, as she mutters to herself. Suddenly, a knock resounds. Irritated by her condescending tone, Zhou activates his Hand of God ability and propels himself forward at lightning speed before the boss can react. At the door, and thinking it might be Su, Sinu gets up to answer it. His exhaustion is evident, and the moment he opens the door, Su collapses, striking her and sending her crashing to the ground, where she falls unconscious. His strength utterly depleted, Zhou is haunted that night, deep in his sleep, by a vivid nightmare in which a shadowy villain forces him to choose between saving his sister, Ochinu. Zhou desperately tries to reach both girls. Zhou shouts that he can't abandon either of them and rushes forward, anguish etched across his face. In his sleepwalking state, Zhou unknowingly enters Sinu's room, startling and waking her. However, he inappropriately touches her hand, and what makes it even worse is that it's not about his sister, but about her friend. Because of this, his sister's friend angrily accuses Zhou of trying to take advantage of her before Zhou even has a chance to respond, but instead bursts into the room. Assuming the worst, she sternly orders them to come downstairs for breakfast, completely misinterpreting the situation. Sinu. He feels triumphant, thinking they are getting along, but it's quite the opposite. So and Sinu's friend exchange disdainful glances, crossing their arms. With an annoyed expression, Sinu's friend mocks Su, calling him a sleepwalking crybaby. Then, Su warns him to stop provoking him. Finally, they head down to the dining room where they begin breakfast. Sinu pointedly asks Su why he came home so late the previous night. Ignoring her question, Su, in an instant, Zhou rushes past her, strategically positioning himself behind her. The boss turns around to face him, retaliates, demanding to know why Sinu made so many calls. Seeing his tone, sharp with suspicion, she tries to deflect conversation. Sinu offers Zhou a piece of chicken, and his demeanor shifts to an awkward joy, masking a steely gaze. Zhou persists, questioning what they were both doing the night before, and why they ignored his calls, hesitating slightly. Sinu seems nervous while her friend replies that they were simply discussing battle tactics for their shared guild missions. Zhou presses further, asking, what kind of secret realm could justify such a prolonged, overnight strategy session? Both girls respond simultaneously, revealing the mysterious shadow domain. The Black Sunday Sinu explains that the Black Sun Shadow is an exceptionally large secret realm, 5 times the Bloodline size of typical kingdoms that face formidable monsters and are ruled by a level 45 boss. The friend steps in, revealing that the survivors believe the Corpse King might be a decoy for an even greater, hidden threat. Intrigued, Sue asks if this means there's a hidden boss within the kingdom, adding that since the boss remains undefeated, the rewards must still be unclaimed. Sensing So's interest, Sinu sternly warns him not to even consider entering such a dangerous place. When Zhou tries to argue, Sinu ruffles his, with a sneer of contempt. His tone drips with disdain as he states that his attack was ineffective, but his expression twists in fury when he realizes Hare, calling him reckless and promising to bring him treasures instead. The friend scoffs at the idea, declaring that she will never let her rewards. Hard-earned gains going to someone as immature as Sue is infuriating. Ignoring their squabbles, So becomes obsessed with the shadow of the Black Sun, silently vowing to reclaim the hidden treasures and unravel its mysteries. Elsewhere in Xiao Hun's office, a mysterious hooded figure named Scorpio appears behind him and announces that Yaya has already been defeated, leaving her position vacant. Upon hearing this news, Xiao Jun freezes in disbelief. His expression pales as fear takes hold of him. He rises from his chair and removes his coat. Xiao Jun demands to know how Yaya could have been defeated, especially since she had escaped and was previously injured. With a sinister smile, Scorpio reveals that an unknown, but immensely, someone powerful was responsible, someone even capable of bypassing the defenses of the Void Seals. With a swift movement, Scorpio announces his departure, and he turns to leave, but not before informing Xiao Jun that he will notify him should future missions arise. Alone in the dark room, Xiao Hun remains in silence, stunned, grappling with the shocking news of Yaya's death. His fury erupts as he slams his fists on the table. His face contorts and rage convinces him that the mysterious swordsman responsible for the crater is also connected to this tragedy. Just then, the door, that his ring is now on Zu's finger. Noticing his growing rage, Su feels a shiver of danger, especially because the cooldown time of bursts open and Xiao Ximin, his eldest son, enters with a stern expression, warning that, despite the Xiao family's distance from the lord of the city and the church, the threat of the Chinese sword still looms large, and Xiao Jun's frustration explodes, his veins pulsing with rage, as he orders Xiao Ximin to gather his forces and find the man who can transform into a crow. Meanwhile, deep within the treacherous level 45 secret realm, Xiao Yu, the shadow of the Black Sun, is locked in a fierce and relentless battle against swarms of monstrous enemies. Xiao Yu channels her power to summon a torrent of swirling water, sending numerous creatures hurtling away in the rushing current. However, her determined expression shifts to concern as she witnesses Xiao Yu being struck by a monster, sending her crashing to the ground. Without losing, time passes. The friend casts another spell, unleashing a second powerful wave of water to drive the monsters away from Sinu's fallen form. At that moment, he appears on the battlefield, his identity concealed by an elegant mask, and with a graceful yet deadly swing of his sword, clears the remaining creatures that threaten Sinu as the monsters retreat. So assures Sinu that he is safe for now. As Sinu looks at him, bewildered, her thoughts swirling with questions, So quickly realizes that Sinu hasn't recognized him because of the mask. His Hand of God ability hasn't refreshed yet, so he'll have to implement a strategy to buy time. So raises his hand, hiding his face. Sinu smiles, impressed by the masked warrior's strength, secretly wondering if he could convince him to become his mentor, his brother. But before Sinu can voice her thoughts, her friend rushes to her side, her voice a frantic expression of worry as she checks on Sinu. She is hurt. Suddenly, a system notification informs So that a player named Lo has sent him an astonishing sum of 999,999 coins. Surprised by such a massive offering, So hesitates briefly, unsure whether to accept this unexpected generosity. In one swift motion, he rushes, next to Sinu, who is about to be attacked. So saves her, and Sinu expresses her gratitude. Suddenly, their eyes meet for a moment, leaving Sinu captivated. The familiarity in the masked warrior's gaze, So urgently pulls Sinu behind him as the ground begins to shake violently with the approach of hundreds of monsters. From a distance, Zhu screams in panic, warning Singu to stay alert as the horde monstruosa se acerca con una ferocidad implacable Los ojos de Zeu brillan con un resplandor eléctrico, y levanta su hoja crepitante, preparándose para unleash the devastating technique known as the 10 steps. One fatal blow, a colossal dome of explosive energy materializes in an instant, consuming. The monsters advance in a dazzling, yet destructive wave that clears the battlefield. When the dust settles, Zhu approaches Zhu to show off the ring and comments that it is stunning and suits the boss perfectly, whom he calls even more dazzling. Surprised by the offering his gratitude for saving Singu, while reminding him that the gold coin he sent earlier was merely a token of his appreciation. He humbly thanks Salu for his kindness, but insists that the coins are too generous for his liking. Before Exo can continue speaking, Sode, he abruptly grabs Sinu by the arm and drags her away with a determined demeanor, as if trying to shield Shiny Yu from his continued presence. Shiny Yu, running to So's side, she protests in confusion, urging him not to leave before learning the stranger's name, but Salu dismisses the idea, leaving him alone. Exo decides to explore other areas within the shadow of the Black Sun, leaping high into the air with an acrobatic flourish before gliding away. Elsewhere, in Area B of the Kless, Shadow of the Black Sun, a group of adventurers finds themselves surrounded by a relentless horde of monsters, forcing them to form a desperate defensive circle. Defensive, the knights, with their shields raised to block the advancing beasts, are suggesting a retreat, but Simza vehemently refuses, his pride burning, as he declares that his mission is far from over. With an authoritative gesture, Sim channels his power and strikes a nearby monster with a sparkling ray. One of the knights, struggling to stem the tide of monsters, asks how they intend to find explorers to map the area, given their precarious situation. Sim encounters with a daring suggestion to recruit, or rather, borrow scouts from rival guilds, which earns the representing a constant threat to the world's security. To survive these increasingly imminent threats, humanity is forced to unexpected compliment. The boss blushes deeply, his cheeks redden as he agrees with Zhu's assessment of him. Zhu, taking advantage of the Knight's agreement, as another wave of monsters approaches, Sim unleashes a flurry of energy blades shaped like glowing rings, cutting through. The horde, with lethal precision, loomed high above. I, in raven form, soared through the skies, my sharp eyes fixating on the troubled seaman and his struggling group. Below, without hesitation, I unleashed a rain of 72 radiant feathers that fell upon the battlefield like meteoric projectiles, striking both monsters and adventurers alike. The feathers paralyzed dozens of enemies, freezing them in place for a critical 10 seconds, effectively tipping the scales of the battle. A monster, mere moments away from striking Simin, was also immobilized by a radiant feather, leaving Simin completely stunned. Yo then activated the Celestial Barrier, a legendary ability that created an impenetrable field, sealing away 100% of the enemy's attributes. Immediately, a massive dome of crackling energy descends onto the battlefield, trapping both monsters and players inside. She is trapped by the barrier's power, and Sim freezes, his eyes widening in shock as he understands that the swordsman can wield magic. Capitalizing on the momentum of his initial attack, he unleashes the corpse flame, showering the enemies with torrential blasts of scorching hellfire. Caught in what feels like an unrelenting storm, and still unable to move, Sim's mind races as he confirms that the formidable crow is, in fact, the. At that moment, he proudly proclaims that he acquired the ring through his own skill, and questions why the other party is so insistent on its return. The timer for swordsman his father tasked him with eliminating. As the barrier finally fades, Joe soars through the air toward a nearby tree, landing gracefully upon a branch. Simin approaches with cautious optimism, proposing an alliance, and offering him a position within her guild so they can conquer the shadow together of the Black Sunday. Without hesitation, he rejects the offer with a sharp and resolute tone, making it clear that he has no interest in working alongside anyone else. Simin raises the stakes by promising a generous reward of 200,000 gold coins if he agrees to join the guild. Before Sao can even respond, the Dovlacame, dark clouds behind him swirl with ominous energy, crackling with lightning, which prompts him to leap from the branch and ascend rapidly into the sky. As he rises through the air beneath the looming storm, he feels the ring in his possession begin to radiate an intense and searing heat. Out of nowhere, a massive palm hurtles toward Yo, forcing him to move out of the way just in time to avoid its crushing blow. As the hand flies past, right in front of Yo, he spots a round void suspended in the sky. A short distance away, the ground trembles as the palm crashes into it, leaving behind a massive crater, a testament to its destructive power. Approaching the void, Yo receives a system notification instructing him to present the ring in order to awaken the final boss. Obeying the system's advice, Yo reveals the ring, triggering an unsettling reaction within the void. The cooldown for his Hand of God ability is reduced to mere seconds as Zhu carefully observes the next move, the enraged boss, from which emerges the level 50 Queen of the Black Sun, wielding a fearsome sword. Her piercing gaze fixes on Yo as she raises her hand, channeling dark energy. In an attack known as Heavenly Fire, a guided and relentless barrage of fury, unleashed with an authoritative gesture, cascades into scorching flames. Each wave is launched towards XO with deadly precision. XO skillfully maneuvers through the inferno, zigzagging through the air to evade the flames, while simultaneously launching razor-sharp feathers to divert the Queen's attention, closing the distance between them with incredible speed. XO seizes the Queen's momentary distraction and activates the Hand of God ability. Realizing that something has been snatched away from her, the Queen's voice erupts in fury, demanding to know what XO has stolen, and launches another wave of hellfire in retaliation. The scorching flames, they detonate in front of Joe, forcing him to ascend even higher into the sky, narrowly escaping their devastating heat and creating more distance between them. He counterattacks, unleashing another barrage of his enchanted feathers aimed at the Queen. One of the feathers strikes her, and the Queen is paralyzed for 10 seconds, providing Joe with a critical opening to seize the advantage. Transforming back into his human form, Joe charges toward the Queen, immobilized, with his sword raised high, radiating the deadly energy of an impending strike. With a single slash, Joe executes the Void Cleft, a movement. Due to his defiance, the boss enters a berserker mode, causing his attributes to increase by a formidable 30%. Za carefully measures his timing. His focus sharpens, that tears through the very fabric of reality, inflicting devastating void damage upon the Queen, who is unable to resist due to her immobilized state. The Reina absorbs the full force of the attack. As the paralysis wears off, it becomes clear that the Queen has been defeated, granting X enough experience to level up to 40. Returning to her crow form, Yo descends gracefully to the ground, landing effortlessly before transforming back to his human form. Turning around, he is surprised to see the Queen still standing, and with a confused tone, he demands to know why she hasn't disappeared after her defeat. Smiling slightly, the Queen reveals her immunity, claiming that she is protected by the Blessing of Dawn, which prevents her annihilation, and demands that Yo hand over the ring. When Yo questions if this is a threat, the Queen affirms it with an unwavering gaze, with a movement of doll. I summon glowing chains imbued with ethereal energy, declaring that she has no choice but to resort to this forbidden ability. Feeling the danger, the Queen hesitates, her tone betraying a hint of fear as she asks, "What does Sao intend to do?" Without warning, I launch the chains forward, their radiant energy tightly enveloping the Queen's figure and binding her completely as she struggles against the chains. Inexorable, the Queen tries to flee, but I tighten my control, forcing her to kneel under their immense pressure. As she collapses, I approach, holding, as the cooldown is now reduced to a mere second. Suddenly, the boss charges at him with incredible speed. Its claws cut through her face and ordering her to yield. However, regrettably, we will end this video here, but if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and a comment. But regardless, as your good friend, I always remind you that the soul of the lazy desires everything but achieves nothing, while the soul of the diligent will prosper. And without anything further to add, until next time, the air and deliver a powerful blow before Zhu can fully react. Although Zhu is injured, he smiles inwardly, pleased that his plan, getting her closer, seems to have worked. The boss raises its claws high, preparing for another fierce attack, but this time Su manages to block the blow with his sword. Seeing his overwhelming attack stopped by the very weapon he despised, the vile boss looks surprised. Capitalizing on this momentary distraction, Zoe activates the Hand of God ability. His hand ignites with a vibrant glow of energy, channeling the ability's power. He raises his hand and points it directly at the boss, successfully stealing his ultimate 10-step skill and a fatal blow. The boss stumbles back in shock, realizing that his ultimate move has been awaken their professions, fight against monsters, level up, and become stronger. Currently, the awakening ceremony is in progress, stripped away, leaving him powerless to use it. In the blink of an eye, Soul teleports behind her and activates his SAC ability, signaling his weak point is located just below the nape of his neck. Sensing the danger, the boss turns his head and sees Su preparing a decisive blow. Using the same skill he had just stolen, Su raises his sword high, aiming directly at the boss with pinpoint accuracy, and with a single strike, masterfully, Su forces the boss to collapse to the ground. Defeated by his overwhelming strength, she struggles to comprehend Su's unparalleled power. The boss demands to know his identity, to which Su reveals his eyes glowing intensely and declares himself the Death Star. As the system announces the boss's defeat, Su reflects that she was far more formidable than the goblins he had faced previously. The system then displays rewards for completing the ultimate beginner's trial, granting him the highly sought-after forbidden treasure chest. Simultaneously, a global notification of Su's victory echoes, and his reward is announced throughout the system, sparking intrigue among players worldwide. In a distant location known as the Church of the End, a demon learns of Su's triumph and erupts in sinister laughter, vowing to capture Su and use him as a sacrifice to resurrect their lord. Meanwhile, within the Blue Star Foundation, an emergency meeting of elite professionals, with hundreds of students gathered on the grounds, all brimming with excitement and determination to awaken unique and powerful professions. 1. Concludes with a unanimous decision to monitor Su closely and guarantee his safety at all costs. With a sudden itch in his nose, Su wonders who could be thinking of him so intensely, but his curiosity fades as he approaches the treasure chest, his excitement growing as he anticipates the rewards hidden inside. As he lifts the chest's lid, a dazzling golden light is already leaving Z completely dazzled. In this game, treasure chests throughout the world come in different levels of rarity, ranging from ordinary wooden chests to of precious gold, and even unique, dazzling diamond chests. Among all of these, the most coveted and extraordinary is the treasure of the four, which Zu has just unlocked. When Zu opens the forbidden chest, he is granted a legendary weapon of unparalleled power, a sword capable of unleashing 400% damage, along with electrifying lightning attacks. Holding the legendary sword in his hands, Zu can't help but avoid smiling broadly, boldly declaring that with this weapon, he is akin to a walking nuclear power plant. Meanwhile, outside of Zu's apartment, a hooded stranger arrives and begins to knock persistently, claiming to be an old friend of Su. The system instantly alerts him to the presence of a visitor. Su momentarily thinks that it might be his sister, and quickly hides his Death Star game identity to keep it a secret. Exuding confidence, Tensi steps onto the awakening platform, clenching her fists as she prepares to awaken her profession. To the amazement of everyone, dismissing the game interface with a simple gesture, Zu walks towards the door and asks the stranger who it is. As the knocking grows louder, insistent, opening the door cautiously, Su is greeted by a hooded individual whose enigmatic aura immediately raises his suspicions. You become suspicious with a disturbing smile. The stranger introduces himself as a preacher and begins rambling about his church, pushing his hand forward to reveal a crimson emblem etched into his palm. Finding the situation increasingly strange, Su grabs his phone and, while maintaining a polite demeanor, thanks the stranger, while discreetly calling the authorities behind his back. Before Su can close the door, the stranger jams his fingers into the gap and, gripping the door frame tightly, demands to know if he has called the police. Without waiting for an answer, the stranger forces, violently kicking the door open, he shouts furiously, accusing Su of daring to summon the authorities. The stranger then pulls out a sword. Glowing with a menacing look and bared teeth, he ominously declares that he will send Zu to meet the Lord, raising his weapon above his head. The stranger prepares to strike him down with a devastating blow aimed directly at Zu, but our boy reacts. Quickly and instinctively raises his hand to activate the Hand of God ability, but the system coldly informs him that the skill cannot be